we had so much fun with it. So I asked Melanie, and I actually asked Jaybird and Jennifer to come out, and then I asked Melanie if she could ask you to come with to the show today, Apollo. So I'm so glad that you were able to hear. But unfortunately, Jennifer and Jaybird were not able to make it today, so I'm so happy both of you are here with us in the studio.
Yay.
So, Sebastian, do you mind playing a little bit for us? You got your, what's that, the Yamaha acoustic?
Yeah.
What, that's that, what kind is that? I know it's a
classical.
classical. Yeah. Here we go. This is Sebastian Messer. He's got his band Krieger, and he's going to be playing some acoustical music for us today. Awesome, thanks. I'm gonna have to ask you to play that that one last week that you came up with. That would be great later on. So anyway, y'all know Sebastian. He's been playing music for about 4 years now.
Yeah, March.
Yeah, so it was kind of crazy because actually, Sebastian, I didn't even tell you this, but one of the people in my author group asked if you were still playing on the show, that they loved listening to the heavy metal. So I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And they were like, oh, it's really cool that you support your son's art or whatever. So let's do a little thing for the folks at home that might be listening for the first time. Apollo, can you give us like a little introduction about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I mean, usually I would describe myself as a visual storyteller and not really a poet, but I do poetry too. I kind of just do anything that my heart desires and kind of just figure out what I feel like doing that time. But other than that, I'm trans, so I'm in the LGBT community, and I'm really active in that in Savannah. You'll probably find me at most coffee shops or at Club One. That's usually where I live.
That's cool. Yeah, I remember when I moved here in '96. I think it was called Club One back then too. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's been around for a long time. And so, and like the last time you were on the show, you talked about some of the challenges that you face, especially being a young person.
Yep.
And that actually you shared a really cool poem about, like, I think it was more kind of like about who you were as a person, and I thought it was really cool. So maybe you could share that with us today at some time.
Yeah.
So
I can, find it.
Yeah, take your time. We're just doing introductions right now. And Melanie Goldey, you've been on the show a couple times.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people around Savannah know you because you do like poetry and you do comedy and you're a photographer and you kind of do like a lot of different things. So can you tell us about yourself?
Yeah. I'm a Renaissance woman.
I love that term, by the way, because I do a lot of things too, and I'm like, I kind of like the Renaissance thing.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been drawn to the performing arts for as long as I can remember. I've been in choir, and I was in high school drama, and I've always been drawn to poetry and writing and expressing myself, and I've been a clown for as long as I can remember too. I've always loved comedy, so it just kind of seems natural to me to do everything. And all of the performing arts kind of tie into one another too. It's really easy to get involved in one and have it translate over into another.
I completely agree, and one of the ways that I talk about that is because I look at everything as like storytelling. We're storytellers. Visual, auditory. We think about like a good conversation you had recently. What were you talking about? Were you talking about like technical stuff? Maybe, but you're probably talking about like, hey, let me tell you about this thing that I did, or you might be planning something out, having a good conversation. I just love that. I gotta set my phone to do not disturb because I don't want to be interrupted here. So for the folks playing at home, the WordBeat poetry is my take on poetry. It was actually the name I came up with because I wanted to publish my own poetry chapter books or chapbooks or whatever. And I was like, you know what? I want to have a name for it, and I came up with the WordBeat poetry. Pretty straightforward. The name says like what it is, and it's not confusing because when I did the Savannah Quill thing, people were like, "What is that? What is that?" You know, it was hard for them to understand it. So I was like, if I'm going to do something, I want it to be like really straightforward, and people know what it is. You've been doing a long time. You've been doing like your poetry shows, like tongue in cheek, right?
Tongue Open Mouth, the music show.
Open mouth. I'm sorry.
No worries.
I always want to say tongue in cheek. I don't know why. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah.
How it started? And...
So it started, I didn't meet the original founder. It was a woman named Rochelle Frazier, and she started it in '09, and she didn't do it for very long. She actually moved out of Savannah.
Okay.
But she started it, and then she handed it over to a local author named Zach Powers, who's amazing.
Yeah, Zach.
He's great, and I started performing there. He was the host when I started performing there, and then probably maybe close to like 6-8 months later, he asked me to take it over, and I actually turned it down. I didn't think I was ready. I was like super nervous, and I was just starting out in comedy, and I just didn't think that I could do the show justice. And then he asked me again a few months after that, and I was like, you know what, I'll do it. I'm just going to bite the bullet and take it over. And I ran with it, and it's become really popular, and I've seen some amazing things. I'm so glad that I took it, because it has made me a better performer and a better artist, and opened me up to kind of what it really means to be an artist, to express yourself. And it's not about being famous or making money. It's really about
yeah, because I've made so much money already, right?
Yeah, if anything, I've definitely lost money. Being an artist, I throw so much into it, and my time and my energy, but it's worth it in the end.
You know, the payoff for me is the relationships that the friendships that I make, and the people that I meet. I mean, the other night we had such a great group, you know, people of different backgrounds and all ages. And, you know, that's one of the things I liked about getting together with that group, was because we had a really nice set of folks. And I think everybody had the same kind of sentiment. Like they wanted to be able to share their story. And everybody was very welcoming. And you know, I felt like, you know, that's a great atmosphere.
Well, yeah, art is for everybody. Art isn't for those who can, you know, who have an art degree. Art isn't for those who can afford materials even. I mean, some of the best art I've ever seen is by people just grabbing whatever they can and making it work.
Stuff,
yeah. You know, and I say this, you know, I've worked with Deep a little bit, and one of my favorite things to say to the kids is that anyone can be a writer. All you have to do to be a writer is to write. That's it.
You actually, but that's the thing. You have to write.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the hardest.
That
actually is the hardest part, right?
Yeah.
So Apollo, how did you get into art and creating? And
well,
because you were talking earlier about like being more of a visual artist,
Yeah.
but you also do poetry.
Yeah.
And that, you know, that getting out there in front of people is a challenge. So
Yeah.
how did you get started?
I think my mom would probably describe it as like, I've been doing this since I was born. I've always been like, she likes to say that I came out of her with flaming red hair and screaming at the top of my lungs.
And by the way, I saw the picture of the hair drying cows thing. I thought that was so cool.
Yeah.
The fluffy cows.
I've just always been super creative, and I always looked for a way to like get what I needed to say out there, and I think it just sort of came out of me. It started as drawing, and then I've always been writing, and then it merged into playing Dungeons and Dragons with my friends and like creating stories that way.
Have you seen the Rick and Morty Dungeons and Dragons comics?
Oh yeah, I have.
Yeah, that's
They're
cool. I have the character sheet covers ones. So
Yeah.
I played D&D when I was a kid. I had some uncles. I had a couple of my uncles that were like really heavy into it. Like they started playing the game when it first came out.
Yeah.
And I played probably, I was like maybe 10, 11, 12, something like that. But I would only play when I was around them. And they lived across town, so you know that was infrequently. But I just remember like my first character ever was a character. He was a drow elf, half human, half elf. And his name was Silverleaf, and he was a ranger, and it was ding, 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 ding. And then all these years later, I started playing World of Warcraft, and Silverleaf in the game is like an herb. And so I was like, I named my character Silverleaf, and they're like, "Oh, you named yourself after an herb?" I'm like, "No, this character name has history. It's
my word.
It's deep."
Yeah. So, but no, that goes back to storytelling. You know, like when you get around in a fraternity, you know, the community. You know, you get people in a room together doing a common interest and, you know, something they like, and, you know, food, beverages, you know, whatever. I mean, doesn't even have to be like a big meal. It could be just snacks or something like that. And
Yep.
yeah, you break bread with people and you learn a lot about them, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, no
That,
lie.
I think that's kind of the goal of my current Dungeons and Dragons groups, is just to get to know people,
Mhm.
you know, to make those connections when you wouldn't do it in normal everyday life.
Okay, so one of the things I want to touch on with that D&D thing, kind of like a sidebar here. Have you ever been to a nerd convention or like a game store?
Oh yeah.
And okay,
Didn't you make your own game? You made your own RPG, right?
I made my own RPG at one point, and I table at conventions. So
okay,
I'm
so
a
I do a lot of
convention
nerd
artist.
conventions too. The last couple of years I haven't as much, but I still write about them.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the funniest things I think with that is like deodorant. I mean, I think it's so funny because it's like it's just just hygiene.
Yeah.
First of all,
Basic hygiene.
nobody wants to smell angry, sweaty nerd rage. It's got to be like
Well, somebody does.
Yeah, it's got to be someone's thing.
I guess I don't know, but I just always thought it was so funny because one of the local game stores, there's a sign on the door that says please use deodorant type thing, and I was like, oh. So, but going back to the storytelling thing, tell me more about your RPG game.
Okay. So I was on a game project with a group of friends, and they all wanted to make a game, and it was interesting because there was a board game made, and then that ended up not working for everyone.
Yeah.
So it kind of turned heels and went into like an actual visual novel, like storytelling kind of game.
Okay.
And it turned into an RPG, and we're doing an update of it soon.
So it's going to be a pen and paper type game, or
it's
is it going to be like a digital?
It's a little bit of both. So there's some ARG elements to it,
Okay.
Which are pen and paper, but then it's mostly an RPG.
And can you tell the folks at home what ARG means?
Like augmented reality game. It's basically just
Okay.
Pokemon Go is an ARG. It's
Okay.
a game that you play in real life.
Yeah. So it's like your phone interacts with the environment or whatever.
Yes. Yeah.
Cool.
All right. So let me do a little station ID, and then let's read some poems.
Yay.
And you are listening to the Adam Messer Show here on WRUULP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. And we're doing WordBeat Poetry today, y'all, with Melanie Goldey and Apollo Him are my special guests. So thank y'all again for coming out. This is one of the things I love about this area. I mean, we had a lot of folks come out Friday, and really, I didn't know that there was such a big community for poetry until I came to Brendan Walsh's Great American Poetry crawl, and then I met you, Melanie, and then I met you, Apollo, because of Melanie, and I was so taken aback by it because I used to write a lot of poetry as a kid, not as an adult. I really, I read a lot of poems and poetry in high school, kind of compulsory for AP English, but really didn't know a lot about poetry. I'm still I feel like I'm new to the community in Savannah with the poetry, even though for me I'm 43, so when I say I was writing, this is like back in the 90s, but I had a gap between, so coming back around, it was just so neat to have all those folks show up. I mean, we had almost like 30 people come out Friday. And what we did, Apollo, was I had Melanie and Jennifer and Jay Bird and myself as like the feature poets. But then we all did like a performance or reading or whatever. And then I opened the floor up and asked people to share with us. And man, I think it was so good. I really liked Marquise's poems and his whole group. Like, excuse me, is it called slam poetry? What's their group called?
The Deep Slam Team.
The Deep Slam Team. So those young folks, I mean, that you can tell that they really practice their cadence and their performance, and so it's really neat.
Yeah,
I like
is doing amazing things.
Yeah.
I can't remember the young lady's name, but the one that she did about a car. Like at the end, it was a car. Like it was all these different things about like kind of like just an abusive type relationship, and then at the end, it's like Like she's talking about a car.
That was Seti Shorty.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah,
She comes
I
out to
love-
tongue as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Melanie, would you like to share something, or are you ready? Or?
Sure. Yeah, I have this piece. I actually shared this on Friday, and I was talking about how I write a lot, but it's really hard for me to share anything. So if you see me perform, it's rare that you'll see new pieces. You'll see a lot of the same work all the time because it's the stuff that I'm comfortable with.
And the one, it's called Swimming, right?
Yeah.
I love that poem. That's one of my favorites. I've heard you perform.
Well, maybe I'll read it later.
Yeah.
I've read it every time I've come on the show. So.
I know, but
Don't stop me now.
Kind of like I don't know. It's just one of those things. Like if you like a good song, I don't mind hearing it over and over again because
I'm the
every
same
time I
way.
catch a new aspect of it.
I'll play. Oh yeah, I play it out. Great. So this is one of my newest pieces. Sometimes I feel in control, like my whole body is a temple reeling with worship, but just because someone is kneeling doesn't mean their offering is healing. Any Judas can steal your holy light if you don't keep the source tight to your chest. This vestibule is sacred, but these sneaky demons keep trying to pry their way to clearance. It's tricky to read intentions from appearance, especially when everyone's face is just a mirror. I realize now I was looking for a clearer view in every eye but my own, but looking inward ain't easy. Eyes don't bend that way.
I love it.
Oh, thanks.
I love it.
Thanks.
And tell me about the snaps thing, because like I was clapping and like other people were like snapping. I really don't understand it yet.
Well, I think it goes back to like beat poetry. It's a classic like showing of appreciation. But for me personally, it started because my pieces are so short. I would literally get up and do pieces that were like a line. And then people would be clapping, and it scared the crap out of me. Like every time I would get up, I would do like 9 pieces, and everyone's clapping really hard after each one, and it was kind of difficult for me to process. I get sensory overload real easy, and people were like clapping, which is I appreciate it. But so when I first started performing, I would ask people to snap in between my pieces because it was way easier to deal with that than a round of applause after every line.
I can understand that.
And then it's just, it's a great way. And now I take pictures a lot at the shows, so my hands aren't even free. So snapping is an easy way for me to show my one-handed appreciation as well.
I can understand that too. As an event coordinator, you often have to make sure everybody else is taken care of first. And like when I'm talking about a one piece or a one-line poem, this one is called "The Sky Full of Clouds." I did that on purpose because I was like, if you think about like looking at the sky, there's a lot of things that a lot of things that you can ponder about if you're outside in the open.
Yeah, when I first started performing, literally all my pieces were just like stands. Just that's all you got. So it's a fun it's a fun easy way to encourage people to show their appreciation if they don't feel like giving a round of applause.
Yeah, I think it feeds into the social anxiety too because no one wants to be the first one to applause. So
not me. I'm a clapper. I'll clap all day. I'll be like, yes. I'll cheer somebody on all day.
I never really thought of it as like an odd thing. And the other night, I host a comedy open mic at the Totally Awesome Bar, and I had the camera in my hand, so I was snapping, and I think the comedian thought I was like telling him to wrap it up, but I was like showing my appreciation, but I forgot that that's like a thing that people do where they're like, come on. But I was literally like, hey, I love that joke, and then he was like, ooh, I guess it's my time, and I gotta go, and he comes down, and I was like, oh, no,
Melanie's cutting me off. Like,
no, that was a good thing. That was a good snap.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I think especially when you're doing an event or hosting an event, because you host a lot of events.
Yeah.
You have to make sure that your guests are taken care of and that the audience is taken care of, and and then you kind of have to be the coordinator between stuff. Sebastian always helps me with my stuff. Like whenever I do an event, because there's just so much stuff going on, he's right there to help me with stuff. So, Apollo, would you like to share a piece with us?
Sure. I guess I can do the one that I did the last time I was on here.
Yeah.
Because I just found it and I'm worried that I'll lose it again. But this one I kind of wrote in a struggle in my life dealing with being trans and not really sure how to express it and how to introduce myself with people and how to, go about my life like after realizing such a big thing. So this was about that. It's called Like This. Hi, my name is Apollo, and I was 13 the first time I dreamed of discarding my bones into the nearest river. My father spat out, "No one loves you when you're like this." By like this, he meant dressed in a boy's shirt. He meant confident in myself. He meant unspeakably ugly. But I heard like this, and I thought alive. Hi, my name is Suicidal, and I am like this. I am the feeling of stale sheets scraping skin, idle nights and days, and everything in between. My identity is a car crash, chaos sirens wailing, and someday I hope to grow up to be a tombstone. Hi, my name is Trans Enough, and when I was 17, I thought the prettiest thing about me was how my bones made war against my sallow skin from the inside. Everyone could tell that I wanted to die just by looking at me, and boy, did I make them look at me. Because, honey, handsome hurts, and I've always been a bit of a masochist. And if you just ask my therapist, my name is holding a match up to my birth certificate, watching every word blacken into ash. And you would think that the blaze would keep me warm in winter, but sometimes my name is Snowflake, and I wish you would all catch hypothermia. The woman at the passport office asks what my name is, a flooded box with an M beside it, and smiling to myself for the first time in a week, screaming revelation atop a fire escape at 4 in the morning in drunken delusional triumph. Hi, my name is Apollo, and someone will undoubtedly yell from their car, hey Apollo, shut up. And I'll take it as a tribute. And I'll bet the price of a good coffee that a Starbucks employee will spell it with only one L, but it won't matter. I'll introduce myself and my life expectancy in the same breath. You better believe that I live to be 35. When I do, I'll shout it from the rooftops because I've never seen them bury someone this. Hi, my name is Apollo, and I will always be like this. Hi, my name is Apollo. 2 syllables, often mistaken for gunshots, for graveyard, for falling ash. Hi, my name is Apollo. No, it actually is Apollo. Hi, my name is Apollo. Hi, my name is... Hi, my name is... Alive.
Nice. I like the part where you're like, somebody will shout from the car.
Yeah.
Hey, shut up, Apollo.
Yep.
Why 35?
Because that's the average age that trans people live to be. A lot of trans people are murdered very young, so if you take an average of the trans population and add it all together and do the division, most people will only live to be 35.
So there's a high mortality rate?
Yeah, very high.
Wow. That is a good goal, but I think you'll live past 35.
I hope so.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know why you wouldn't, you know.
I feel like that's young by today's standards.
If I could share something with you, I thought I was going to die by 30.
Mm-hmm.
I really did. I thought I would be dead by 30. And I met my wife, and I was 21, and I changed the way I lived completely, and then became like a dad and all that stuff. I mean, I've always worked. It wasn't a problem of not working. It's just a lot of less self-destructive type behavior. Mm-hmm. And when I hit 30, I was terrified, like paranoid, until I turned 31. And then, like, when I turned 31, I was like, I made it. I did. I got past 30. So, and my father died at 51. Mm-hmm. So that's another thing. It's like I'm 43 now. I'm like, I've got 8 years. 8 years. That's it. But I hope to live actually longer than that. So I can definitely understand that feeling. Like, not necessarily like from your perspective, but mortality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's something that scares everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're young and reckless and you don't care if you die or not, it doesn't matter. Like, that's how I was. I was like, I don't care. But when I had a reason to care, I started, doing different things. So,
man, someone's gonna have to tell me how that young and reckless thing works out because I've never experienced it.
Well, it's just different.
Yeah,
it's different. But back to the nerdy stuff or whatever. Excuse me. Do you have an idea of when you're going to be releasing your RPG?
I don't. Currently, our director is hoping for sometime the end of this year, but he's not certain, so we're in talks back and forth about it.
Is there somewhere where folks can follow the progress or like your company?
Right now,
or a Kickstarter or something.
Yeah, right now we're putting the Kickstarter together.
Yes.
Yeah,
so
cool.
Definitely let me know because I love to help share my friends' stuff, like when they're working on things or whatever. Mm-hmm. And like we were talking the other day, Melanie, like I work a lot during the week, so I try to tell people I am not available usually Monday through Thursday at all. Like I just can't. And then on the weekends, it just depends on what's up, what I can do or whatever. But I think, like there's this big thing that goes around, especially for authors, that says, how you can support somebody without, paying a dime. It's like their page and like their posts and click on this and share or whatever. That's all good. I mean, like, honestly, social media is all good and well, but really, show up.
Yeah.
Show up, be available to talk to somebody on the phone or whatever. I mean, like, you made a post the other day, and I shared it about it was about the green eyes one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have green eyes too. Like, if you see, my eyes are green, and I would have never thought somebody would say green eyes don't exist. I'm like, yeah, right here.
Yeah.
I have green eyes.
That was one of my professors.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Who told me that fantasy writing is pointless and that green eyes don't exist and that poetry is terrible.
Well, I got a little story
opinion.
to share with that, because I have a friend named Benny White that he is a local rap artist, and he's got a good little following. And we were talking one day, and I was like, I grew up listening to like gangster rap and like hardcore stuff, and I'm not a big fan of mumble rap. It's just not my thing, right? And I was telling him, I was like, the difference between like old school rap and like the new stuff is, you got new stuff that's got like one word or one line, and that's like the whole song, and versus back in the day, it was like, there's a whole story involved or whatever. And my buddy was like, man, because he grew up listening to gangster rap, and he's done a lot of gangster rap, and he was like, man, people are gonna do their thing, so if they like it, let them like it. And I was like, that's true. I don't have to like their thing, but they can like their thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like, honestly, I am a heterosexual white male. I don't really necessarily like being labeled cisgender or whatever. I think that's kind of ridiculous to me. But I feel like if you're a trans man and that's what you are doing in your life, it's not my business. It's your business.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of people get the mistake, is like, it's like, mind your business, leave your your neighbors alone. You don't have to. I mean, like, you're not doing anything to hurt somebody.
Yeah.
And it's not. I mean, the LGBTQIA community. There's a reason why there's so many letters. It's because they all represent different parts, but that's the closest thing to each other that they can band to.
Yeah.
And it's like, they're not hurting anybody. Stop, stop bothering people.
I mean, statistically, we're more likely to be the victims of violence than we are to hurt someone else. So
yeah, percentage wise, it is. And then you have to look at the actual numbers too, like how many, per population and all that stuff. I mean, like, statistics are crazy.
Yeah.
But it is, it's one of those things, I think, that if people would just mind their own business and just try to be friendly and courteous, I think the world would be a lot better place.
It's funny how many people, I think, would agree with the statement that everyone is different, and what a boring place the world would be if we were all the same and like the same things. But then people are also afraid of anything different or things that they don't understand, and sometimes I think it's easier for people to band together over things that they hate than it is over things that they like.
Well, people will say no before they'll say yes.
Always.
Right? People, as a baby, you learn to destroy before you learn to build. It's in our human nature.
Sure.
We have negative thoughts all the time, and it's just part of our nature. But it's not natural, I think, to hate somebody when you don't know them.
Yeah.
I think it's not okay.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time it's more like what you said. It's about learning and understanding.
Mm-hmm.
I think that like having a voice in the LGBT community and being someone that speaks for them, for me at least, is about showing people that they don't need to be afraid. They don't need to hate us because we're just like everyone else, but we may do different things. But
the last time you were on, we were even talking about how you were getting flack because being a trans man, people treat you like a cis white male.
Yes, yeah.
So that's a whole nother set of problems.
Oh yeah,
that
if people don't know that I'm trans,
Right.
they will just assume that I'm a cis white man and I'm here to like walk all over someone else's experience when that's not the case.
Not, but I think the reason why I'm bringing that up, talking about that, is because with your poem, I think it's really important. Because the other night, some of the stuff that some of the poets talked about was they didn't. I mean, I don't want to say that they were like super duper deep. I mean, they were on some things, but they were talking about like social issues. Like Marquise. Do you know Marquise's last name?
Lashad.
Okay, so Marquise Lashad, he shared a poem, and I really liked the poem. He was talking. I think it was like, I'm a
That's his
product
middle name.
of.
Sorry, it's Williams. I was just thinking that's his middle name, Lashad.
Okay.
It's Williams.
Sorry, Marquise,
I had to
if
think
you're
about his
listening.
Facebook name.
Yeah. So, but he shared this poem about, I'm a product of, and it's talking about like all these different things going back, thousands of years, and really, isn't that what we all are? We're the DNA that survived. We're the DNA that made it to this time frame. We're supposed to be here at this time right now. So with that, I have to do the station announcements.
Sorry, Marquise.
WRUULP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul.
The Savannah Jewish Film Festival will present its annual program featuring 10 movies in a variety of motion picture genres related to Jewish history and identity. This event will take place from January 22nd through the 26th at the Jewish Educational Alliance. More information is available at savannahjea.org.
This portion of WRUU-LP Savannah Soundings programming is brought to you by listeners and the Ships of the Sea Museum. The Ships of the Sea Museum is a member of the National Trust for Historic Preservation's Distinctive Destinations program. The William Scarborough House is the earliest example of the use of Greek Revival architecture in the domestic setting, and this year is the 200th anniversary of the Scarborough House. Find out more about Ships of the Sea Museum at the website shipsofthesea.org.
Okay, and here is Sebastian Messer playing for us. Thank you, Bass. That was awesome. I like that one a lot. Okay, so we are back, everybody, tuning in. If you're just now tuning in, you're listening to WRUU LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. I'm your host, Adam Messer, and this is the Adam Messer Show. And my special guests today are Apollo Him and Melanie Goldey.
Hey.
And I would just like to throw this out there to you. If you like our programming, if you like having a different voice here in Savannah with community radio, go to WRUU.org and consider making a donation. You can make a $1 donation. You can make a monthly donation. You can do all those things right there on WRUU.org and hit the donate button. So thank you. And yeah, that's how we pay the light bills here and all that other good stuff, like new equipment and all that. So before the break, we were talking about, I feel like it's important to address social issues, and because the only thing that I can think of, because there's like all these huge social, economic, and political issues that, I mean, this is nothing new. Like, if you look back at any history of time, there's always been, people have different opinions and whatever. But I think the best way to resolve issues is through communication. Education and communication. And like I said earlier, when you sit down and break bread with people, and you have a meal with somebody, and you find out, oh well, hey, Apollo's not that much different than I am. I mean, we like D&D, and we like nerding out with stuff. I mean,
Yep.
Melanie, you have a lot of talent. I mean, I can see. I do the same kind of things. I do poetry. I do photography. I do event planning. I've got a radio show. I mean, like, I do a lot of different things. And matter of fact, last year somebody was like, well, what do you want me to tell people that you do? I was like, I don't like labels, because I feel like I'm a creative person, and I don't want to say I'm just this one thing, because I'm not just that one thing. And from that, I was like, you know what? Let me just make a little tag. So I said, okay, I'm an author, artist, entertainer. Now, That's my show. I just said I'm an author, a journalist, and a radio show host. But it's hard because people want to put you in a box or they want to put a label on you. And they look at you and they see a certain thing and they're like, they're going to stereotype. And they're going to say, well, based on what I know or what I've seen, they're going to do that. So I love the fact that we can sit here and talk about stuff like that. And maybe, somebody will walk away and say, hey, I feel like Friday when we had the group there, I was just really amazed and blown away with the talent of people that were out there. I felt like it was a great way to share and talk about different viewpoints and perspectives.
Oh, I hate the word talent.
Well, I don't.
It's talent. So talent, it kind of denotes that it's something you're born with or you're not. And art isn't that. And you're not born knowing how to draw. You're not born knowing how to write poetry.
It's a talent you develop.
It's a skill.
Yeah.
So it's like
skill.
That's why I like the word. I hate the word talent because it erases all the hard work you put into it. I didn't wake up knowing how to work a crowd and how to run a show and how to take a picture. These were skills that I developed. Now, some people are naturally inclined or have, and that might be the word talent for that, have natural inclinations towards things that are better than others. But if you say, "Oh, you're so talented," it erases all the hard work that you put into.
See, I don't agree with that. I don't agree that when you give somebody a compliment, that necessarily negates their skills.
Well, it's that word specifically, and people might look at now. I would say Apollo is an incredibly skilled artist, and when you look at his work, his illustrations, if you say, "Oh, you're so talented," he put years and years and years of work into that. It's skill, and it's a skill that anyone can build. Talent's like, oh, I'm going to turn on my talent today. That doesn't exist. Talent doesn't exist. It's the work and the ordering your art and the putting the work into that skill, that people want to call talent, that people use talent to describe.
I understand your perspective. I just respectfully disagree. I think when you give someone a compliment, and that kind of goes back to the being offended culture type stuff, like saying, hey, I don't like this word because of whatever. You have to look at the intention when somebody says it. Like when I said, I feel like you're talented or you have a lot of talents, it was not my intention to undermine any of your skills.
Oh, no.
But that's something too that comedy breaches. Comedy, I think, helps us to understand because there's a lot of people. I mean, honestly, there are a lot of people. If you want to be offended about whatever, you can be offended all day long. I could be offended. Like I could say, I don't like hard rock. I'm offended by your hat, which is a hat that Apollo's wearing right now.
Yeah.
My point with it is that when you know the nice thing about being offended, the good thing about being offended, you get over it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, not an offense thing. It's just something that was ingrained into me from my work through Savannah Stage Company. Our director, Jamie Tinty, gives this great speech at the beginning that she took from like a 4-hour workshop from this famous actor. And she starts out with talent does not exist. And it's something that we ingrained into every single actor. You can't show up to rehearsal and turn your talent on.
Yeah.
It's not something that you can use. You can't use talent. It doesn't exist. You have to build skills.
Well,
so
hard
it's
work
kind of
beats
to get
talent
people,
every day.
Yeah, it's
hard
to
work
get
beats
people out of
talent
that
every day.
mindset.
But when just to kind of, I guess to kind of move on from it, that is one of the things about having different opinions and perspectives, because obviously you have to have skills, you have to work, you have to do the work. Like we said earlier, if you want to be a writer, you have to write.
Yeah.
The thing that you want to do, you have to do the work.
Right.
That's obvious.
Yeah.
Some people are naturally gifted with different abilities, talents or whatever,
right.
as a generic term. But hard work beats talent day after day after day. I've seen people that were average, mediocre, maybe poor performers when they first started something, and they didn't have a lot of ability or talent or whatever, and obviously they didn't have skills because they were new. But when you compare them to someone who was like a natural beginner, a naturally talented person, or they might have had like some background or whatever, the person who's more consistent with the work and shows up consistently over a period of time, they outgrow the other person.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other person's like, oh, well, I used to be so much better than you.
Mm-hmm.
And now, they're not, and I don't like to compare myself to other people. Michael Jordan used to always say the only person he competed against was himself yesterday, like kind of thing.
Right.
So, and I mean, it's just one of those things. I feel like you're right about the skills and all, but the part about, I just don't feel like when somebody gives you a compliment, it necessarily negates if you don't like a word that they chose per se. I mean, because honestly, I don't like some things that people say, but that's their choice.
Sure. Well, it's about getting people to realize that it's not necessarily a talent, that it is hard work.
Yeah.
That I didn't wake up a performance artist
obviously
today.
Yeah, that's obvious.
It's years and years and years that of work that I put into, and it kind of lets people know that it's something they can do as well.
Right.
And I get people all the time that say, I could never do what you do, or I could never, even like, I love to sing karaoke, and I try and get my friends to come out and sing karaoke with me, and they hate it, and they will not.
I am
I could never.
Singer, but
I'm like,
I
you should have
love
heard me when I first started. I would like shake. I would get up on stage. I couldn't sing. I couldn't, and I'm weird about doing new songs. I don't like getting up. Like I do the same songs, just like my poetry. I do the same ones because they're comfortable over and over again. It's hard to push myself out of that comfort zone. And they're like, oh, I could never. I'm like, you could.
But your performance is polished. I mean, like, even if you don't feel like it's something that you like, I've heard you the last couple of days say that you don't do a lot of new you don't make a lot of new material. You do the same material over and over again.
Yeah.
And but the thing is, though, the stuff that you do put out there is polished.
Right.
It's you practice it, and you can tell that you practice it.
That's why I do it, because it's comfortable.
Yeah. And see, and this is something else too that I want to hit on, like talking about communication. Like this just whole little conversation we just had is one of my big things that I like to tell people. Like, you don't have to always agree with people to be able to be respectful and polite and courteous to them. You can have different, like you were talking about earlier. Why would we want a world with everybody's the same? Why?
I love discourse.
Yeah.
I was born a devil's advocate, and I love to I hate the word argue, but in a civil, like, I love discourse. I just like chatting about things, especially with people who might not agree with me, because that's what gets the wheels turning.
Yeah. And it's a great way to bridge those gaps of
arguing and bickering are two different things, right?
Yeah.
An argument is like your perspective. Bickering is when you're just being nasty about it, And when you have the perspectives, and I totally cut you off there. I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine.
Like, I was just thinking about like what you were saying with the argument, because I honestly will disengage from people that if they are so narrow-minded or so myopic that they have there's no reaching them at all. I'm not going to change your mind. I'm not going to try to. If I have my perspective and my opinion, and yours is obviously wrong for whatever reason, and I'm not saying that you're right or wrong, but racism's wrong. Like, if I know people that are racist, and I have said things to them. I'm like, don't talk like that around me. I feel bad that you feel that way, and I feel bad that you would say that. But, one, it's illegal at work. Two, it's immoral. Three, what makes that person any different than you? I know that that's wrong, but I'm not going to engage in them with a conversation about it, about, why they think it's okay. That's not okay. Like, somebody says, I don't like trans people. Well, you're wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just not
incorrect fundamentally. There's a difference with communicating and having a disagreement and someone being fundamentally incorrect about something.
Or verbally abusive.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's name calling, ad hominems, I see that all the time now.
Yeah.
Like, that is such a scapegoat way to negate somebody. It's a fallacy itself,
Yeah.
And I see that all the time. Like the OK Boomer thing, right? That was totally an ad hominem campaign. Like, OK Boomer, like somebody would say something stupid. Now, do I agree with what the Boomer generation was saying? No. But to just come back blatantly and say, being totally dismissive, that's not right either. There's a common ground, and really, it's almost a shame that there's such this dichotomy between the age groups now. Because look at how much people are missing out on by not being willing to communicate or being just summarily dismissive from the beginning of a conversation based off of stereotypes.
The internet, I think the internet allows anyone now to validate any opinion whatsoever.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And then people say, I'm entitled to my opinion. Well, sure, you certainly are, as long as you understand that your opinion is based on pseudoscience or hate.
Pseudoscience is the worst.
Yeah.
It's
sure.
like ancient aliens. If it didn't happen, it was aliens.
Yeah, it's like you're entitled to whatever opinion you want, as long as you know that it doesn't align with facts, or that you're just being hateful.
Right.
And that your opinion, when it is incorrect like that, it doesn't prevent you from other people talking to you about your opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because a lot of
Or
times
having
they'll be like, well, that's my opinion. And
If you make it public, and you put it out there that, basically if you put it on Facebook, that's public. I mean, people think it's private. It's not.
Yeah.
Social media is public. You
Yeah.
know, that's a public forum. Even if you put it to just yourself or whatever, it's a public forum. And when you put it out there, hey, you know, freedom of speech does not mean freedom of consequences.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and you can't, I mean, hate speech is one of those protected things. It's like you can't, you know.
I have a love-hate relationship with cancel culture now, because while I'm glad, I'm really glad that people are like stepping up and saying the right things and being like, no, we need to shut this down. It's hard because then you're shutting down the discussion.
Yeah,
and I think
exactly.
the discussion is important too.
Yeah, the only
Yeah.
time that I will step in and actually advocate for anyone to be silenced is when it's like, oh, we've had a discussion and you are not willing to continue this discussion. Like, you've started hate, so now I have to step in and say, all right, this person is being actively hateful, and I advocate that other people don't
Then you
talk
don't
to
believe
them.
in the freedom of speech. If you believe that it's okay to silence somebody and censure somebody, then you don't believe in freedom of speech.
I believe
that
in-
is the whole point of freedom of speech. You can say something hateful and you can say whatever you want. That's the freedom of speech. I don't have to agree with it, and that's not meaning that there aren't consequences.
Yeah.
But I believe in your right to say whatever you want to say.
But what I'm saying is, what I think we agree on freedom of speech, because it's someone can say whatever they want to me, but that does not mean that they can stop the consequences of me going to, like, say
Exactly.
they say
there can
they
be
hate trans
there are
people.
consequences attached to it.
Yeah.
And you don't have to engage with them,
Exactly.
but you don't have the right to try to silence or censure anybody.
yeah, like, I can't silence.
And that's one of the big
what
problems I
they're
have
saying.
with cancel culture right now. Is like, you see it a lot with comedy, because I follow a lot of comedy, especially college towns. That, you know, and I mean, I'm not right wing and I'm not left wing, but I see a lot of cancel culture going on, especially with like right wing and, you know, people that are pro Trump and all that. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with, you know, that ideology or the political stances. I don't believe in those theories and the way that they think about things. Like, you talk about pseudoscience, I don't believe in that. But I do firmly believe that they have the right to express themselves.
Yeah.
But
They
that
can
doesn't
say
mean
whatever
that
they
they're not
want.
free of consequences. Like you and I, we could say something here. I mean, like, my show could be shut down because of something I could say.
Yeah.
Like, if I used any of those, you know, the like,
Forbidden fruits over there.
yeah, George Carlin's, you know, that actually came for like the George Carlin
Yeah.
skit, right? If I said any of those words and the FCC were like, well, somebody were to complain, and then I could have a $10,000 fine, you know, not prison time, obviously, luckily, but you know, I think that's one of the things that, going back to poetry, is like, poetry gives people a place to say the things that they're either, one, afraid to say, or two, they have been censured or silenced.
Exactly.
You know, because if you think about, like, especially with the Slam team, a lot of those issues dealt with slavery and how their ancestors came to this country, and then the oppression that they face still today, right? They were not allowed to say those things up until the 60s. You know, I mean, we're talking about Martin Luther King Day is tomorrow. He's, like, you know, one of the best civil rights activists, you know, the last 100 years or so, probably the best. But they were not allowed to say those things.
Yeah.
That
Still
is
aren't some places.
Yeah.
that is censure. That is silence. That you talk about cancel culture. I mean, cancel culture is not anything new. It's been around forever.
I have an
It's
ongoing.
just under a
Hold on
different
for a second,
name.
y'all. I'm sorry. I got to do the station ID real quick.
Yeah, it's important.
You're listening to WRUU LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. And sorry.
I was gonna say, no, it's okay. That's why we're here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have an ongoing conversation kind of with cultural appropriation and what that means to people and why
Right.
they should be concerned.
Right.
For Halloween, I wore a Dia de los Muertos. I did my
I
face
saw
like
that.
a sugar
yeah,
skull.
the sugar mask or whatever.
Because I want people to really have the conversation and understand the difference between cultural exchange and cultural appropriation.
Right.
And there's a difference between, like, say, wearing blackface and going out and or doing something that's traditional. And white people need to sit down in so many respects and understand what the difference is between cultural appropriation and cultural exchange. And you can love other cultures, you can take things from other cultures and enjoy them, but you have to do the homework. You have to understand where you're coming from and where the line is between respect and parody.
Yeah.
So here's a question for you, talking about that. Let's say a person goes to a local Mexican restaurant and it's their birthday, and the staff brings them a big hat,
Sombrero
to wear, and they give them a poncho to wear, What would that be?
I mean, that's a gray line. I think it's hard because it's fun. You're having a good time, but the issue, what brings it into cultural appropriation is when you're taking something from another culture and you're not appreciating where it came from or where the struggle is now. For instance, like a lot of people, the argument was with like Dia de los Muertos is that you take the parts of the culture that you want to have fun with and ignore the struggle. Like right now, literally, we have American citizens in cages because of the color of their skin and because of their heritage, and it's disgusting. Yeah. So when you're talking about, wait, I want to go out and do a cute sugar skull face and go out and have a good time, but I don't bring anything to the discussion about immigration or about what's going on. You're cherry picking the pieces of the culture that you want, and that's when it becomes appropriation. That's when it's not okay. And I just want people to kind of realize that it's not about the makeup. It's not about the poncho. It's about cherry picking and having fun with the pieces of culture that you like and ignoring the issues.
I saw a comedian recently. I wish I could remember his name, but he was talking about like in the U.S., I mean, there's a small population of Asian people. I mean, like very small. It's like 3 or 4%. You know, Asians are not the minority in the world. They're not. There are 2 billion Chinese people in China. That's just China, right? And then you have India and you have like all the Pacific and all that. And he was talking about like, you know, how people would act about him being a minority here, but he's not really a minority. You know, in the world, there's actually only about 800 million Caucasians completely in the world. So really, in the eyes of the world, we're not like white people are not, because all three of us in here are white. We're not the majority. In the U.S., we are,
right. But
in the world, we're not. And I think a lot of that cultural appropriation goes back to colonization, and you know, a lot of bad things have happened in the world, you know. But to go back to that talking about people being offended about stuff, like when I was a kid, we played cops and robbers and we played cowboys and Indians. There were a lot of Western shows. I mean, like there was a whole industry of like Western stuff, right? Now I have 5%, according to a DNA test that I took, I have 5% Native American. That does not make me Native American. It means that my ancestry, that I have a Native American heritage or indigenous heritage, right? So I don't feel like it would be appropriate for me to say, oh, well, you know, I have Cherokee, I have Muskogee. You know, I don't say that I am Cherokee or I am Muskogee. I say I have this heritage, you know, because there are a lot of people out there who say, oh, I had an Indian princess in my, well, first of all, they're not Indians. You know, they're Native American or indigenous. Right. That's just a name that because they thought, you know, Columbus thought that they landed in the Indies, you know, whatever, or the India. We'll call them Indians. But going back to being offended by everything, you know, social media, and a lot of it's popped up in the last 10 years or so, right? But social media has made it so easy for people to move from one to the next, to the next, to the next issue in life, that they're like, oh, I'm upset about this or I'm upset about that. And if you look at how much it actually affects your real life, how often does it actually affect, like, you know, somebody's hating on a trans man. Why? How many trans men do you actually know? Yeah. Is this like a real life thing, or is it just a in your head type thing?
It's mostly people searching for that argument a lot of the time. Like and it comes back to cultural appropriation too. It's a lot of people who search for that sort of thing to talk about, and
they want to be upset and angry. You know, and it goes on both sides. It goes on the people that are racist, and it goes on the people that are, you know, the campus cancel culture people. Yeah, you know, it's both sides. People don't realize that it's the same coin.
I hate extremists.
You know, it
is. I can't tell you how many times I've run into a well-meaning, like, cis white person trying to advocate for me. Okay, so
stop right there with the cis white. Can you explain what that means? Because there are people out there that don't know what cis means.
Yeah, cis is just cisgender. It's just literally you identify with the gender that you were born with.
But what does cis stand for?
It stands for cisgender. So cis is a like I'm forgetting my terms of language,
That's
but
okay.
It's the to gender. It's a prefix, yeah, right. To gender. So
and that cisgender thing's like a new thing.
Yeah, and cis just means the same,
right.
And trans means going from one to the
other.
other.
But that moniker is a new relatively new term.
Yeah.
It comes from chemistry. It relates to the molecular structure in which two particle atoms or groups lie on the same side of a given plane.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
I never knew. I just learned.
But yeah, it basically just means the same. But it's a coined term
Yeah.
that our community uses to describe people.
Well, describe which people?
Describe people who...
Heterosexual people?
Well, no, because
Cisgender?
heterosexual is another thing.
Because you can be cis and gay.
Yeah, you can be cis and gay.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, now that's a whole other thing. Like this literally is all new. Not new as far as like the way the world has been, but like new to being in the forefront of people's talking and communication and stuff like that. People have never really talked about it. I mean, like I've known people as a kid that were gay and that they hid it from people because there were so many negative consequences for them to come out as gay.
Well, I think it's new. It's new because we're giving people a voice. We're giving people the voice to speak their minds and to bridge that gap and to say what they want to say. And we're trying to do better, hopefully.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. You have to have dialogues. And I think going back to storytelling, really storytelling and poetry and things like that are a great, like music, you know, that I think that is a great way for people to have it out there and say, hey, you know, this is what it's all about. I'm expressing myself about this, or I'm expressing myself about that. And I don't like it honestly, I don't like when somebody stereotypes me. You know, being a white male, I don't like that. You know, I have, it's not that, you know, I should get upset or offended, but I don't like it. You know, I don't think anybody likes it.
Yeah, no.
You know, but you get people out there that's like, oh, you know, it's just not right all the way around. I think you should treat people like human beings and respect them and mind your business. Like, you know, if it's not hurting you, it's not affecting you. I mean, like, you know, if you don't know a trans person in real life, and you probably do, and you just might not know it, shut up.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and a lot of times I will get like people who will step in and try to be offended for me.
Well,
So-
that's another
and
whole
I'm just
thing. It's like, I can handle myself.
Yeah, like I can talk for myself. Like you don't have to be offended at things for me.
Right.
those
Well,
extra
that happens a
allies.
lot too.
Yeah.
With that actually happens a lot too with minorities, because there are people that will get upset and offended about something, and the person that should be offended is like, dude, just shut up.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't even want to talk about it type thing. And I think it kind of goes back to you got extremists on both sides. Like you got the people that are like, you know, like the racist haters, and you got on the other side, you got the people that are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that you're gonna blah 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 because of XYZ reason. And did you know that it doesn't matter really if it's not affecting your personal life and it's not bothering you and it's not inhibiting you from something. Go move along.
I think as long as you're not hurting anyone, and that's a great line too, because you can unintentionally hurt, and you can unintentionally be ignorant and say the wrong thing or say something completely wrong with the best intentions. But honestly, I think just a rule of thumb: anybody should be able to do whatever they want or live their lives however they want. If
Right.
they're not hurting anyone, then what does it matter?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, so everybody, you're listening to WRU-LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back right after 4 o'clock.
Yay.
You are listening to
So we're gonna have the-
WRUU-LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with global